another situation, well, in a move to drive for consistent electricity supply, the Akwa Ibom State Governor, Pastor Moino, has declared a state of emergency in the power sector. The state governor, who made the declaration on Tuesday at the ESCO ministerial briefing at the end of the year review held at Government House U, said power was critical to the success of all major projects, especially the aviation ecosystem, seaport, and medical corridor that his administration is embarking on. Aside from setting up a power infrastructure committee to oversee the sector, the governor said the state hold a power summit to enable a thorough review of the current state of affairs of the sector and set modalities to ensure regular power supply. He also said his vision is to deliver 24-hour power supply and use that to ignite the nation's economy. This statement is coming just 1 month after the sack of the former managing director of the state-owned power company, Ibom Power Company, engineer Mayin Etudo. Now, you could recall that the embattled MD, following a 4-day power outage in the state, announced in a press statement that the blackout was as a result of the failure of the Akwa gas, the gas supply, to supply gas to the plant, with the claims that the state owned it. Joining us in the studio is the Special Assistant to the Governor on New Media, Mr. Manam Hilary Moldovia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for joining us, Mr.
Thank
Manam.
you. It's a pleasure. Good to be back on Niger Delta today.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah,
well, let's talk power now. We understand that prior to this move, Akwa Ibom State hasn't been affected really by the national grid collapse, which has been happening in other years. But recently, that has changed. And we want to understand what exactly is the trajectory or the situation around the power sector that we are now experiencing that.
Okay, first I need to start from the basis that you will all know that this administration has a policy trust that's talking about the Arise agenda, and one of it is the issue of infrastructure. And we know that power is critical to the development of every infrastructure in any state. It is what drives the SMEs. It is what would drive other businesses to thrive. And so we've had, unfortunately, over time, I think in 2024 alone, we've had a number of, about 12 national grid collapse. And to, situate the vision of the Ibom Power Company, a number of times the Ibom Power Company has been able to come to the rescue of Akwa Ibomites, being that the facility itself is a thermal power plant that was to supply to the national grid, and in some cases will also supply to the state. So in most of the times that you have the national grid collapse, what will give power to most of Akwa Ibomites that we get to enjoy, and looks like we are like isolated from the challenge, is the Ibom Power Company. But then again, there are a number of concerns. I've always said that the administration of Pastor Moino is one that is committed to a number of things, and that is why he's raising up some of the conversations for us to talk again on how to sustain our infrastructures. He had made mention during the ESCO briefing that he inherited 3 major infrastructures for the state. That's the Ibom Power Company, the aviation industry has been driven by Ibom A, and then perhaps you now talk about perhaps the medical side, which he wants to further expand on. Ibom Deep Seaport, and then he's now trying to include one more that is bringing up the other infrastructures like the medical corridor and all of that. So we've had challenges with the Ibom Power Company, and to underscore the sincerity of the governor, there are a number of leaders who would have come out to maybe sugarcoat and not tell us the truth of what is happening. The governor has been honest enough, open enough, to tell Akwa Ibomites that the reality is that we must restructure. It is no longer business as usual. Instances whereby, agencies of the state seem not to, happen performances. He's been harping on that and says that we need to restructure. And one thing that led to the emergency that people will say, and I want to bring us back to a conversation which for me is always very dear to my heart. The issue of power generation and distribution is one thing that it doesn't just affect Akwa Ibom alone. We must have that conversation again as a country, because most times, like in the case of Akwa Ibom, you generate power, but you cannot even enjoy the power that you generate, because power distribution is still on the exclusive list. The license given to the Ibom Power Company, to distribute, was for selected locations that were not captured on the national grid. So that's the reality that we have to face. So a number of times we come out, and then the challenge is not from the state. This state has invested. If you look at the South-South and the Southeast region, we are the highest in terms of investment in the power sector. But yet we are still, we still cannot, cannot boast of 24 hours power supply due to myriads of issues which the governor has, is determined to tackle them now.
Sorry to cut you in there. Now, you've made mention of the 24-hour power supply, and the governor had said that. Is it even possible that in these times, because we've heard a number of times, administrations after administrations will hit 18 hours and we hear 20 hours. Is it even possible that in this state we can have 24-hour power supply?
Well, I just told you that there are a number of challenges we must be honest to tackle, and that's what the governor is doing. One, we are aware of the fact that we even have the evacuation line that is talking about the Aba-Aloji to evacuation line, which supplies power to Akwa Ibom from the national grid, is really constrained because that land is really old. And I think a number of times the outgoing MD of Ibom Power Company had said there was a need to change and overhaul that infrastructure. That's one part. The other part is that what the acting MD of Ibom Power, who also doubles as the Honorable Commissioner for Power, disclosed on Tuesday rather, was that as at the 16th of December 2024, the Ibom Power Company had to, what we call a demo test, because that the installed power capacity of the Ibom Power is about 191 megawatts. So over time, it has been able to supply 50 megawatts to the national grid. And in instances where national grid will collapse, has been able to supply 25 to 27 megawatts. So there was a need to have some sort of demonstration test that, assuming the company or the facilities will work optimally, what can it supply? And the demonstration test showed that it was able to generate about 107 megawatts, which is a good indication. But I've said that as much as we generate this power, we've invested into generation, that we must also tackle the challenge of distribution, which is not really an Akwa Ibom phenomenon.
What about the issue of unavailability of gas supply? What is the state government doing in that regard to ensure there is sufficient gas supply for Ibom?
I've just told you that, where the demo test showed, because that's where you open up, supply all the gas to all the facilities. Let's see what we can generate. There are certain issues of commitment to the gas company and all of that. And that's why the governor has ordered that by March next year, we're going to have what we call, the Power Summit, where as one of the outcome of the Power Summit, we'll have a Power Infrastructure Committee that will look at certain issues, turn around the company for good. But then there's a role for citizens to play in all we are talking about. One thing that came on Tuesday was on the issue of people bypassing power. A number of persons do not want to pay the bills. That's a reality and a challenge that we must face. It is very easy to call on government to, to do certain things. But we must also be honest to ourselves as a people, to talk about the things that we need to do, to also support government.
All right. As much as we'd like to get on with this conversation, of course, because we understand that power affects each and every one of us. We need power to light up the studio, actually.
Definitely.
So while we look forward to having 24 hours power supply in Akwa Ibom State, what would you like to say, maybe in the split seconds, what would you like to say concerning the people, what should be done, especially when it comes to issues of vandalism? Because we've had to hear of issues of vandalizing infrastructure, power infrastructure, just in split seconds.
I've just said that we also need to be honest as people. When you go to communities and realize that, oil is being stolen from the transformer, people cut off cables, it is not ghosts that will do that. It is people who do that. So there must be a sense of collective ownership of infrastructures when government come to your community and embark on certain programs or maybe, install some facilities, you have a role to play to, to secure that, that investment. Because at the end of the day, it is still the people who will suffer.
Okay.
And then you come out and hear people saying that, government is not doing this, government is not doing that. Government is doing its own bit. People, citizens must also do their own bit. Because for me, governance, I would always say, is a collective venture.